Okay, we are live. You ready to get absolutely nuts, Dr. Dean?
I am so ready.
Okay.
I don't get asked that nearly enough. Are you ready to get absolutely nuts? Hell yeah. Let's go.
One of the many reasons I love spending time with you. And get this, on today's episode of Playing Small is Canceled, we have an extraordinary guest. He's a best-selling author, entrepreneur, and internationally renowned speaker whose content will penetrate your soul. Big facts. His book, Being You, Changing the World, is a number one bestseller and has been translated into nearly 20 languages. No big deal. He is a co creator and leading facilitator of Access Consciousness, a personal development modality practiced in more than 170 countries, just to name a few. As a conscious and creative thought leader with a profound understanding of the power of personal creation, he draws upon his background and unique perspective to facilitate positive change and empower people from every culture, country, age, and background to create the money, relationships, and life they truly desire. Access Consciousness, available in more than 170 countries, has changed the lives of millions, including my own. Please welcome the innovative, passionate, illuminating, and influential, the handsome and abundant Dr. Dain Heer. Hi, Dr. Dain.
And after that, I'm awesome. I mean, I was great before, but now, wow. I was like, I want to listen to whoever you're talking about. You sound awesome.
I got to tell you, when I knew this was in the calendar, I get extra excited. I love collaborating with everybody. That's why, we were selective and so forth. But me and you have formed an awesome bond offline. And I love your work. I love your personality. And every time we get together, which has been a lot now, we're going to do much more. It's so much fun. I know you're a busy cat. Thank you for being here today.
Oh, man, my honor and my pleasure. And I absolutely agree with you.
All right. Before we dive in, I have a little icebreaker for you. You ready for me?
Yeah, go for it. I love your icebreakers.
What does it mean for you to live an authentic life?
Well, it's liking that person looking back at you in the mirror and having a sense that you're actually in integrity with your choices. And it's not about having to be perfect. It's about acknowledging where you screw something up and endeavoring to do it better next time, not from I was wrong, I'm bad, but from is that actually how I'd like to be in the world? And then from there, so that's a sort of a starting point. But from there, what I've seen is it creates a space where you trust you. And that's one of the big things that a lot of us, have a bit of work to do in that area, because we try to structure our lives in such a way that they work based on a structure, not from being present with each thing in each moment that's presenting itself to us, and also the creation of future, where we actually can trust the basis of our choices and actually trust ourselves.
Yeah, beautifully said. And what is one thing someone could do that's listening right now that they could do tangibly to begin to maybe trust themselves more?
Well, take the last thing you did that you're still giving yourself a hard time for and stop. We have this thing called a clearing statement in Access, and short form for that is POC and POD. And basically, it's making a choice to undo that train of thought that you're on that is speeding to go off the end of the bridge that doesn't exist anymore. It's like it's our ability to not have to carry that forward that allows us to make a greater choice in the future. Because otherwise, if we're continuously looking at what we did wrong and holding on to that, we're going to avoid things in the future rather than be present for the opportunities and the possibilities that present themselves. And we're going to create things as smaller than they can be.
So good. Absolutely love it. And I feel like as humans, we spend way too much time beating ourselves up about things that maybe we need to let go, or maybe even certain things that we can't change.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing is it's the place where self-judgment can finally stop. Here's the I do this thing called Access Consciousness, and we have a definition of consciousness where everything exists and nothing is judged, and which is a bit of a like what your head kind of vibrates when you say it, because it's like how can you know what to choose if you're not judging? Now, here's the interesting part is we've all been lied to about the gift and value of judgment. Judgment doesn't show you possibilities for what can be chosen, and it actually doesn't direct you in a direction of possibilities. The way judgment actually works is any judgment you come to, any conclusion, any decision, any fixed point of view about anything keeps any other awareness out of your world. So if we just take that for a moment, okay, so I judge that I did this wrong. Well, it makes it very difficult to see anything other than the wrongness of that. Okay. Here's even, you want to stick yourself with something even more, judge that you did something right, and you will never be greater than that. And so we live in a world in which we've been taught from the time we were little kids that judgment had value in showing us what to choose, and it's the exact opposite. And yet, so for some of these things that I say, I'll say something like that, and people are like, well, yeah, but what else? Well, that's the thing is, for each one of these concepts, there's something else that's actually greater, and that's the conversation that needs to be had next. If we function from awareness instead of judgment, which is where we can perceive a whisper of something saying, hey, try this, go in this direction, call this person, send this email, whatever, rather than our structure of judgment for how something gets created or a structure of judgment for what was right and wrong, what happens is we start to have that trust in ourselves, but also we again embrace an exploration, an exploratory point of view where it becomes an adventure to create again, rather than a nonstop backlog of everything we've done wrong and trying to choose based on this being somehow true and then trying to somehow create something different. We get lost in the weeds in that case. But if you function from awareness and instead of judgment, go to question, what else is possible here I've never considered? Hey, if I choose this, what will my life be like? What will the business be like? What will this project be like in the next 5 years? In which you start to get in that, because a lot of people are like, well, I'm not sure I have that awareness. I know you gotta train yourself to go from the solid block reality that judgment gives you to the malleable awareness reality that asking questions and functioning from awareness gives you. And so if you ask, there's a great question, because people always ask me, how do I know what to choose? And I'll be working with someone either one-on-one or, companies or classes or whatever. And I'll say, okay, so give me a choice you're having a problem with. And they'll give me, and I'll say, okay, so if you choose this, what will your life be like in 5 years? Not look like, be like. And they're like, huh? I'm like, well, let me ask you the other side of the question so you can get the comparison. If you don't choose this, what will your life be like? And they go, oh. And their awareness in the moment is, okay, one goes like this. One has a sense of space. One is kind of like that thing where everything just feels great. Like, oh yeah, that's that. Okay, that one lands. And then the other one is like, oh, I feel like I'm putting walls around me. Well, then choose the one that goes like this. And you're the one who has that awareness, but you can only access the awareness if you're not in a continuous state of avoidance because you've been judging yourself for all of your past choices.
It's so good. So even just presenting the options and then seeing if we go this path, this is what this will be like, or this path, or even if we don't do this, then we can kind of get a visual of what that would be like.
Yeah. And actually, and some people, and here's the other thing I want to bring up is some people are really visual. Some people are more kinesthetic. Some people are more, it's almost like everything has an outline or something. Some people, it's more of almost like sound. Everybody has their own way of getting awarenesses like that. So I want to, part of the reason I'm having this conversation is because I've been recently working with people and on this subject of aphantasia, which is where somebody closes their eyes. And if you ask them to see an apple, they don't see anything. And they close their eyes and they basically press the reset switch. So they don't remember what happened yesterday after they go to sleep, which is very interesting exploration. But what I found is everybody has a unique way of being aware. And part of the reason we don't trust ourselves in our awareness is because nobody looked into our world to see how is our snowflake of awareness constructed. Whereas if they had, rather than trying to fit us all into a box in which judgment is supposed to show us what's possible and how to get there. If we lived in a world in which people looked into a kid's unique form of awareness and didn't try to make it like everybody else's and didn't try to make them wrong when it wasn't, what we would have as adults is, oh, I have awareness, I just get it differently. And that alone would take us out of a huge amount of what we've learned to do about judging us to try to get to the right choice. We'd realize there is no right choice. There's simply, what will this choice create? And in that, we come out of the entire structure of judgment, and it is far larger, and we have far less of needing to justify and needing to validate and needing to be validated.
Unbelievable. You say the word awareness a couple times. Is that another word for consciousness? Are they one and the same or different?
Yep. They're like twin brothers, twin sisters, And the thing about consciousness is, even Einstein said I say even Einstein like he's some piker, but I just say that because he was doing, old physics. He was like the OG of the OG. But one of the things he talked about that has been dynamically elaborated upon since is that every molecule has consciousness. And, they'll talk about the quantum entanglements of particular molecules where one changes its state, one that's way over here changes its state instantaneously. And we're kind of like that. We're much more, when we allow ourselves to have the consciousness of things, and consciousness, remember, where everything exists and nothing is judged. So you can either have judgment or you can have awareness. You can either have judgment or you can have consciousness. If we take it further, you can either have judgment or you can have gratitude. You can either have judgment or you can have joy. You can either have judgment or you can like yourself. And it's like, it becomes, and then you recognize with this thing called consciousness and awareness, what we're allowing ourselves to have access to is everything beyond our mind, but it doesn't exclude our mind. Our mind gets to be there playing with it, but we allow ourselves not to believe that only the computing system of my mind is the source for the awareness I require. Instead, open up, and playing small is canceled. How to create miracles? Open up to this friggin' huge universe that's available by, instead of using the structures of judgment to try to understand reality and create something different, open up to question, awareness, consciousness, which allows everything to contribute. And the funny part for me is some of the most successful business people I've ever met and some of the most successful people in families do exactly this, but they don't call it that. And they don't even realize it. They just happen to be a savant in doing that.
I love it. I have a very deep question before I do. This sits right next to me, and I want to just give a plug.
Thank you.
This book is awesome.
Thank you.
You're changing the world. It's unbelievable. And I have a bookmark to this chapter 4. Ask and you shall receive. Your point of view creates a reality. Reality does not create your point of view. I encourage everybody to grab this. In fact, grab a second one and give it to someone you care about. It's very, very helpful. And you do such an unbelievable job of taking complex conversations and making them very digestible.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, my brother. So question in regards to consciousness. If you do something, depending upon which consciousness you do it from, I believe you might get a different result. In other words, let's say you're helping somebody with the right consciousness because you generally want to help them and you don't want anything in return, as opposed to helping the same person, the same situation, but with an agenda because you want in return. I believe that's not the correct consciousness. Do you agree? Is it safe to say that depending upon which consciousness you operate from, you can get a different result, even if you do the same thing?
Oh, absolutely. And the way that I talk to people about it is, it's not as much what you choose, it's the space from which you choose it. And here's the thing that is the antithesis of consciousness, because here's the thing about consciousness, because people ask me, why consciousness? And there's so many answers to that question, but basically it makes everything easier and more fun and more successful. And people become more productive. They get sick less. They're happier. Like, the list can go on and on. So I think the first case, the case in which you're doing it with an agenda. Well, what you have is you have projections and expectations for what is going to occur if you do this for someone. And the difficulty is any time, and this speaks to the conversation about judgment and conclusion. Anytime you have a projection and expectation about anyone or anything, and about how something should go, and about how it's going to go, and about what you're going to get from it, if it doesn't match that 100%, you then go into judgment and rejection. You go into judgment of you, or judgment of them. Those, by the way, live together. You don't actually judge others unless you're judging yourself too, which is a story we can talk about at some point. But in that unmet projection and expectation, there is a judgment and a rejection of you and them, and maybe the whole thing. And we have to realize it got created because of our projection and expectation. So, recipe for a happy life: never project and expect anything of anyone. And then what happens, and people will hear that and go, well, how can you live that way? Well, I'll tell you from personal experience, wonderfully, like very successfully. Okay. And I say success on whatever metric you want to measure success on, including money, including business success, including relationship success, including body. It's like all of it. And so it's interesting that we've been so conditioned that the way we create something is by trying to force it into existence with our projections and expectations. The difficulty is we're already in a judgment that is cutting off our awareness of whether this will match that or not. So instead, if we can be vulnerable enough with ourselves, and it's funny because a lot of people think vulnerability is weakness. I see vulnerability as one of the ultimate spaces of personal potency, because you have no walls and barriers and you have nothing to prove. You're willing to be there with whatever it is. So you can be whatever you are, and whatever we're looking at can be as it is. And then instead of us going, oh, I need to put this round peg in this square hole, you go, oh, I've been trying to put this round peg in this square hole. I'm projecting and expecting that it should go there. Wait a minute. What if I acknowledge that it's a round peg? Okay. What can the round peg do the square hole never could? And so you start to, instead of trying to force everything and then get angry at people that don't listen, and you become a petty tyrant micromanager if you're working with other people and you're doing this because you're trying to control them. And you believe, I'm not saying you, but somebody who does this believes that the people that work with them are not working with them, they're working for them, and they should just do whatever this person wants. There are certain cases in which that has an effect, will be okay for a certain amount of time. But if the person instead asks a question like, hey, what else is possible here I've never considered? What can this round peg do that the square peg never could? And also, all of my projections and expectations about this, and all the ones I'm picking up from everybody, I'm letting those go now. And I'm going to be here fresh, new day, new me, new moment. Okay, what do I need to see here to actually have this thing work? And so all of the things I'm talking about, when you first hear them, you may go, no way, not possible. I'm clicking away. But in actuality, it's extremely pragmatic, but to such a degree that it's not enough work for some people who are convinced that the only way they're going to create anything is by busting through every barrier in front of them. But the difficulty is, when all you have is a hammer, you see every problem as a nail.
I mean, that's where we dropped the mic, but we're not done yet. That was unbelievable. A different approach, change your point of view. Yeah. I used to be like that if I'm being vulnerable. like Wall Street background. I was the hardest worker in the room, grind until I considered there's a different narrative. You could be allowed, tap into your feminine, manifest, connect.
Yeah.
And I do think that there are seasons when you have a hammer and when you grind, specifically if you're starting something new and you're getting it off the ground, but it's not really sustainable.
That and the thing is, see, there are a lot of assumptions that go with exploring something different, on any level. And so for me, that hardworking thing, that's awesome. It's when we do it from having to force everything into existence, where we're the source and we're the force, and everything outside of us is a bunch of nails that we have to hammer to get anywhere. That's where it creates less than it could. And the thing is, I'm not even saying it's wrong. It's not wrong. It's just, here's the effect that's getting created. Here's the amount of energy we're having to put into this. Is there a way that will create more and greater for everybody that does not require us to receive our validation from the amount of work and force and effort we're putting in? Because here's the other part. And once again, each of us is different. So each person will be doing whatever they're doing for whyever they're doing it, whatever their motivation is. And so it's a nice thing to be able to work one-on-one with people sometimes, especially if there are several elements of this, because you start to realize that this person, they're doing it because they think they must, they're doing it, for whatever their reasons are. But if we look at this, a lot of people get validated by working themselves to exhaustion. And they think they need to do that, kind of like you were talking about being that way, hardest worker in the room. And it's like, this is my identity. And I get it. And there's nothing wrong with that. And then what else is possible that could increase the quality of your life and the quality of your experience of this whole thing and everybody else's, and create even more money, even more success, even more sales? Like, people are flabbergasted when I say, well, why don't we do it in a way that creates more of all of this and is easier? People are like, you're a dreamer. I'm like, well, yeah, I may be a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. Let's go.
Yeah, I love it. Before, you got really excited about something and you said maybe we'll save that for a different conversation. I'd love to unpack that real quick. Can you talk about the judgment that we feel in others is really a reflection of something that we have about ourselves? Can we go deep on that?
Yeah, and it's actually, at least the initial conversation is really simple, and it functions from this. If you'll look at any time you have like an angst or a judgment of somebody else, what you want to do is go, okay, everywhere I was that and everywhere I did that, I'm now letting that go. Now I would use that clearing statement, that POC and POD thing but you don't have to. You could do that in your head or just have the acknowledgement. If you're judging someone or something else, it's because you've been there and done it. And it may not be readily apparent to you that you've been there and done it, because part of what we do with judgment is we put up the walls of the things we want to separate ourselves from. Judgment is a way of trying to control reality and control people and control our experience. Well, you can control or you can enjoy. You got a choice. Okay. You can control, which requires you to continuously put energy into it and continuously avoid everything you're trying to keep away. Or you can lower the walls and barriers and go, okay, I'm not perfect either. Cool. And if I stop judging them, how much less judgment do I have to do of me? And so, once again, when you see yourself judging somebody else, or when somebody just irks you, you could, if you want to do an exploration, just a tiny quick one, you could be like, okay, so what is it I see in them that I'm judging in me? Because if you're not judging it in you, it doesn't have a charge. See, judgment always creates charge, positive and negative, right and wrong. It's polarity. It's the embodiment of polarity, basically. And so, and there, people have all kinds of points of view about a word like polarity, but if we look at that, it's that, and so us choosing to go, okay, what am I judging in them that I'm also judging in me? Or what judgment do I have of me that I see in them also? And then if once you acknowledge it, it's a very interesting thing. If you want to change a relationship with somebody, this is one of the quickest ways, depending on what's going on. But because once you acknowledge that, then you got to get real about, okay, am I willing to get over judging me? Because here's one of the other lies of judgment. One of the biggest lies of judgment is that if I'm judging myself for it, then I won't do bad things in the future. Guess what really happens? There's this thing called polarity. Positive and negative, when they get together, create a structure. That's how our little molecules and atoms are held together, right? Well, guess what you do? For everything you're judging, you are now holding on to that. And so it has no choice but to show up for you. And if you study a little bit of quantum physics, where anything you be will show up for you, when you judge it, you are now solidifying it with your choice, saying that this is real for me and something I must avoid. And you think you need to keep your attention on it so you won't experience it. That works the exact opposite. When you have your attention on something continuously, that's when you will experience it. Where the person next to you doesn't have their attention on that, doesn't experience it, and you don't understand why. And you don't understand why your realities are so different. Well, in this particular area, you've got so much charge on it, it can't help but show up.
Yeah, beautifully said. Being triggered is an invitation to mastery because it's data on something that we probably need to correct or transform within ourselves.
That, brilliantly put.
Yeah.
And if we will, and here's the other thing is, man, none of us are perfect, me included. Please, everybody, please. Perfection is the highest form of judgment of ourselves and the highest standard that we can hold ourselves to, that always gives us something to judge, because perfection does not exist except in the recognition of the perfection of everything as it already is. And so we're going to screw it up. But if you desire something different, before I went to chiropractic school, I had just graduated from college. I was a business economics major. I was taking a year. I was working at a gym. It was awesome. And I realized I wanted to become a chiropractor because this just lit me up. And I just knew, I'm like, this is awesome. And I was having lunch with a chiropractic friend of mine. She was probably in her 40s. And I said, here I was, I think I was 23 maybe. I said, look, I really want to be a chiropractor, but I think it's too late. Really, I'm really old. I've already gone through college. And she looked at me and she started laughing. She's like, what do you think is going to happen when 10 years from now you finally desire to do it and you realize you missed 10 years because you decided it was too late when you were 23? And I went, oh. And so the reason I'm saying that is because rather than go, well, I'm not perfect enough to start on the journey, this is where we get to embrace ourselves, warts and all. That's really one of the elements of vulnerability is, you know what, I'm not perfect and it's okay. And all these places I'm judging myself. See, I'm a big fan of giving people tools. So it's like all these places I'm judging myself. Okay, I will find the tools to change that. I'm going to start valuing me enough to where judging me is no longer my primary go-to option anymore. I'm going to actually start valuing me enough to be vulnerable enough with me to recognize the places I'm doing judgment of me and start stopping that, because it's very challenging to stop it all at once, perhaps. But I'm also going to start looking from a place of, rather than doing that knee-jerk reaction to judgment of me and other people, I'm going to just take a moment, take a breath, see a hand in front of my face or a stop sign. I'm just going to stop for a moment, go, wait, what other choice do I have available here? And if it happens to be where I'm judging somebody else, I'm going to go, okay, what judgment do I have of me that is triggering this? And what would my life be like if I let that go? And then talk about that shit.
No, this is amazing. So let's just say you're scrolling on Instagram, which a lot of people can relate to, and all of a sudden they see someone winning or something, and all of a sudden they have this judgment, this trigger. If they just pause right there to, wait a minute, What do I need to correct? What am I judging myself about? Is it that simple? Not easy, but simple to do something like that?
It can be exactly that simple. And what'd you say? You're scrolling on Instagram and you see somebody doing what?
Winning.
Yeah. Well, here's the other. Okay, so everything, it's so wonderful because there's so many elements to this, at least in my ADHD brain, because when you see somebody winning, are they winning or are they proving that they're a winner? And this is the other thing, because here's the other thing that will tweak us is because we have an inbuilt lie detector. Okay. When the one time it's appropriate to have that energy of what you might call anger or like, come up is when there's a lie involved in something. So if you're scrolling through Instagram and you see this person, this is why I'm a big fan of asking questions like, what is this? What do I do with it? Can I change it? How do I change it? But in this case, if you're scrolling through Instagram, there's a couple scenarios that might occur. One is this person is proving how perfect they are, and they're doing it to curate likes. And there's a way that certain people have that is so amazing. I'm always impressed when I see it at this point. I used to get very frustrated with it. And there's a way certain people have of, I'm better than you, but I'm actually not, I'm just like you. I'm so real, but I'm better than you, There's so much of that out there. And people know how to push those energetic buttons. Well, good for them. But what used to happen for me was I used to get tweaked, like I didn't want people to buy the lie and all this. And then I went, what am I doing? Why do I need to be upset? This person has found a way to create what they think is important in life. And there are people who need that. They're okay, cool. I'm over my superior point of view that it should be different. So there will be an element of angst or irk when you have an inherent awareness that somebody is being false, even if nobody else has that awareness. And I'm saying this because a lot of people that are watching this and that listen to your stuff and listen to my stuff have a dynamically high bullshit meter. They're really sensitive and aware. So if we can acknowledge that, that's not a wrongness. If we can acknowledge and then go to question rather than being stuck with that thing that feels like it's sticking us, because exactly like you said, being triggered is an invitation to mastery. Nowhere is it more true than the triggers we get from other people. So that was one of the first things that might come up. And then the second is, and you won't know what it is until you ask, but the second is where you're judging yourself in a particular way, basically against this person. Like if you have a judgment come up of them of, oh my God, they're too over the top. Well, in that case, I can't do that when I want to.
No, me neither.
But here, wait, I learned this. Wait, this I might be able to do. Right?
Wow.
Right.
How'd you do that?
Exactly. Somebody showed me. Okay, so here's the secret. Thumbs, but then when you put these together and then like that. I know it took me, I know. There's just it's one of the.
I'm fascinated by that. I'll have to know.
So was I. I'm like, it's so funny. Bright shiny things. Squirrel. Okay, it's so good. So the when you let's say you, like I said, judge them for being over the top or thinking they're too cool or blah 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 blah. Well, then you go, okay, it's a part of a distinction between, is this the anger because there's a lie involved and I'm aware of it? And once you get here's the interesting thing is once you get the awareness of the lie. So in the scenario I was talking about before, where the person is basically lying about who they are and we're aware of it and nobody else is. Okay. Once you get the awareness of the lie, all the charge goes away and you're like, oh, okay, cool. They're doing their thing. Good for them. If you have another sort of judgment come up, like, oh, they're over the top, or they're too happy, or they're too well dressed, or they think they're so cool. That's where you want to go, okay, where am I judging myself from that? And how old am I being? Because a lot of these things that are these knee-jerk reactions are from things that occurred when we were much younger and we didn't have the tools, we didn't have the awareness. It just felt like a punch in the guts. Like you were looking really good, you're going to school or something, and how mean kids can be. And they told you, oh, you're so stupid. Why are you wearing that outfit? And you're like, whoa. Because once again, kids don't have the walls and barriers, which is actually a good thing on one level. And so you can get the sense and use it for that path to mastery rather than using it to add another reason to judge you to your day.
So good. So to be clear and to clarify, there's a chance that when you see something, it's triggering something in you that needs to be corrected. But also, because the people that are in our world typically have a very high consciousness, they could spot out the BS right away, and then just like you almost find it like a little disappointing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then though, the joy of the interesting part is what you'll notice is going from that yuck and stuck place and then having it open up. It's interesting because you'll never be the effect of that same thing again in the same way.
To be honest with you, that actually impacted me a great deal today, because sometimes because of where I'm at in my wisdom and my studies, and to be fair, I got a lot of ways to go, but a lot further than I was a couple of years back. If I see something like that, it does make me feel some type of way, and I do try to be introspective and say, what does that mean to me? But just maybe it's because you see someone like, you're better than that, or maybe something along the lines of that is a little bit reassuring. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
my pleasure.
Of all the things that you have going on right now, my friend, which is a lot, travel all over the world, what are you most pumped about right now?
Well, something that I'm just starting to create, which I don't have very many of the specifics for it, but I was watching, there's a guy, I think his name is Tommy G on YouTube, and he spent 2 days with the RFK Jr. campaign. And it's interesting because I don't normally talk politics at all, but I'm very interested in, our world's future. And I'm interested in people that are actually present, not just a talking head. And so he spent 2 days with him, and something in listening to that and some of the other stuff I've seen with him, I was like, huh. Because one of the things that people say about RFK Jr., I guess I should say, is he gives me hope for our future. And I was looking at that, and then I'm also looking at the thousands of people that I've spoken with, interacted with, and sort of gotten the general pulse and temperature of what's been going on for them for the last few years. And I went, you know what? I think it's finally time. The last few years have been a shit show in a lot of ways for a lot of people. There's been a lot of stress about money in a different way. It's almost like people can't relax anymore. They're like, they may be feeling better about things now than they were a little while ago, but still there's this sense of like this heightened angst that is going on. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do something really inexpensive and make it a large number of days, probably, I don't know, 15 or 20 days or something. And I'm calling it Restoring Hope. And what I've found is when we get together, all those of us that would like a different possibility, sorry, there's the most beautiful cardinal outside my window right now. I'm like, wow.
I love
amazing.
that. Is that a real background, by the way?
Yeah, it's my backyard.
Yeah, of course it is. all I see is abundance.
Yeah, I truly, I know I have created this, and I am also extremely blessed. And friggin' grateful. And that also, so this idea of restoring hope, and I when I create a program, what I'm looking at is, because I've been doing this, for this particular work for 24 years. And what that's given me is this ability to tap into the people of the world that actually desire a change and are willing to choose it, but then be ready for when it is actually possible to create. And I've been looking to create something like this for a very long time. So anyway, it's going to be really friggin' inexpensive. It's called Restoring Hope, at least as far as I know now, unless a better name presents itself. But it's about the idea of, let's get on our big girl and big boy panties. Let's stop lamenting the past. Let's stop judging us and everyone. Let's stop acting like we can't create something different. And let's create a greater fucking future for all of us.
Amen. How important do you think hope is?
So important. And I also, once again, what's that?
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to say something about that because, once again, the complex nature of even the simplest of things, a lot of people believe that having hope is an airy fairy concept. I completely disagree. I believe it's a space of knowing there are greater possibilities. And then how do we get there and actualize them and actually live it rather than just hope for it?
We have to do something really powerful together. I couldn't love you more. I want to stay right there, and then we'll land the plane. So a knowing, I agree with you. It's the most powerful thing there is. There's a big difference between having confidence and having a knowing. For anyone listening right now that might not be super spiritual or just getting into some of your work and stuff, and like, wow, how do I cultivate a knowing? What would you say?
I'd say the easiest, quickest path is to look over your life and look at 3 things that you knew not to do and you chose them anyway. And recognize that you knew that they were going to turn out not in a, and then you tried to logic it. Usually what happens is we'll know not to do it, but everybody else is saying to do it, or societally it's the right thing to do, or yes, I will marry this person, or whatever it is. Sorry if I brought up PTSD for some people. And well, that was my personal case. I asked my girlfriend of 24 years ago to marry me, and I knew not to do it. And I felt like the walls were caving in, but I didn't have the tools at the time, which true makes you lighter, a lie makes you heavier. And it's okay not to just fulfill other people's needs and desires. And so, but as a way of accessing that knowing, if you look at something and you acknowledge just a couple of things, 2 or 3 things of where you knew not to do it, and then you sort of allowed yourself to go down the logic route and the judgment route, which is why I started by trying to get people out of judgment, if we're going to have miracles here, and recognize that you did that, and then come out of the judgment of it. Once again, we have this clearing statement, Puck and Pod. You can go to theclearingstatement.com. It's free. Please use it, okay? But come out of the judgment of it to the best of your ability, and then go, if I knew that, and I knew what not to choose, then I must know more than I've been acknowledging, because the limitation on our knowing is that it doesn't match the judgment systems that we've been sold are superior to knowing. And yet we all know. Every single one of us knows. And to the degree that we're willing to access that, our life can show up in so many miraculous ways, and I'm saying not airy fairy miraculous, okay? Not like, oh my God, the fairies said hi. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is you have a choice to make. You're going to choose this or this. Okay, well, if I have knowing, rather than trying to judge it, rather than trying to understand it, rather than trying to figure it out, this is game changing, okay? Rather than trying to figure it out, which is tapping into all the structures of judgment that I have previously instituted and that others have, as though that's a pathway to create a different future. How can we even believe that we can do that if you're functioning from the past and the structure of it? How in any way can that be a path to creating a different future? It can't. But if we have knowing, and there's many scenarios, but let's say we have this and this in front of us and we go, okay, which is lighter? Or what will the business be like? What might life be like if I choose this? Will it be like this or like this? Will it be like this or like this? Okay, well, neither one of those is that light. Neither one of those has got the promise of what I thought I was doing this for. Is there another option I haven't considered? What else is possible I haven't considered here that actually brings the lightness into play, that brings the enthusiasm, that brings the zest for life and living, that brings the sense that we're actually creating what we want to here? And that can occur from knowing, can never occur from judgment and from trying to get it right and from trying to avoid getting it wrong.
have like a dopamine hit because I'm just high speaking to you. I gotta ask you. Well, actually, I want to tell you a secret that once I tell you, it's not going to be a secret. But I feel that is this. This is the greatest episode of Playing Small is canceled yet, and it's gonna be very tough, if near impossible, to top.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Are these conversations your dinner conversations as well?
With the people that are willing to have them, absolutely.
With the people that are willing to have them. What an
Yeah.
awesome answer. Same.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That.
I love you. Before we land the plane, how can people get involved? How can they support? Where are you traveling next? I know you have an event coming up soon in DC, which is the end of this month, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. I've got an event in DC, and there's also an evening class. I never know the dates, but it's about creating a greater future. Basically, similar conversations to what we've been having, tailored to the people that are there and the people online. You can attend via Zoom. And it's called Creating a Greater Future. You can go to my website, drdainheer.com. And it's DRDAINHEER.com. I've been told you must spell your name because it's weird. I'm like, okay. And on there, I have so many free resources, so many low price resources. Yeah, and so my entire target is creating a world of possibilities. And the one thing that I know is the less judgment we function from, the less wrongness, the less need to be right and make others wrong. And the more consciousness we allow, that is the one thing that will change everything that's going on in our world that doesn't work for any of us. So that's my target.
I love it. Restoring hope, baby.
That.
Dain, thank you so much for stopping by today and dropping these priceless, juicy nuggets.
Craig, it is an honor and a pleasure as always. I look forward to next time.
Same. Love you, buddy. Hang out.
Love you too, brother. Thank you.